Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter here. We got a lot of fun for you today. We're going to be talking with OOIDA about Carrier 411, and we just might hit another topic that people are liking about, something about transparency. I don't know, something crazy like that. More to come.
Welcome to the Double Broker Bounty Hunters Stop the Scam. Here are your hosts, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera, and Dispatch Kate, Caitlin Price.
Another one bites the dust.
Hello, folks. We have made it to another milestone here at Stop the Scam. This is episode 40. We have been at this now for almost a year. We are very much looking forward to getting through December and not only celebrating Christmas, but our first full year of being out here. And glad you all can join us. We do have a couple quick things that we want, housekeeping items we want to get out of the way real quick before we get to our guests. First one, we got some fraud stuff going on, just like usual. You know, it's kind of interesting. We're going to be talking a lot about Carrier 411 because you brokers out there, pay attention to this MC. This carrier has been compromised. Apparently, what they have done is they booked one of those too good to be true loads a few months ago. And then today, whatever scammer got their hands on their documentation has been using that documentation to book loads and double broker. This carrier has already drawn at least one FreightGuard today out of this mess, but we want to make sure that if you are booking with this carrier, please make sure you know whose truck your cargo is really on. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce our guests. From OOIDA, we have the Executive VP, Lewie Pugh. Lewie, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to being on the show today.
Outstanding. Glad to have you. We also have one of their compliance specialists, Aaron Lynch. How are you doing today, Aaron?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Can't complain. And even if I did, who the heck would listen? And then we also have listening in the background, one of their PR guys, George. And I doubt he's going to say very much, but you know how PR is. Kate, it's been another Monday in paradise dispatching. How do you end up doing today?
Oh, this is the slowest start to a week in maybe the entire time that I've been doing this.
Oh, it's been crazy. It's the holiday effect.
Yeah,
you're kidding. You're already done for the week? Oh my God.
I'm totally done. Totally done.
God. No, I can't say that. I wish I was, but I've got half of my guys are done. Yeah, half of my guys are done for the week. I've got a couple more that I'm still trying to scratch out to get them home for the holiday. But man, I'll tell you, it has been a crazy market. Certainly the holiday effect is already in play. Rates are going down already for the holiday. So drivers, if you're not home yet, find a way to get home while you still can. And hopefully you don't have to take $1 a mile to do it. With that being said, let's go ahead and really start getting into the forgive me, Jenny in a bottle. My dear, I do apologize. We have Jen Cressman, one of our favorites and regulars out here from Tucker Alvin. Jen, how are you doing in your mobile studio today?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Like I said, it took me a little bit longer to detour around here. I'll be parked in just a moment. But thanks for having me on. I'm excited to listen to the conversation today and add in where I can. Looking forward to this one.
Okay, so I know we've got quite a few people already starting to ask questions. My texts are blowing up right now. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's get into the crux of the matter, guys. So Lewie and Aaron, let's go ahead and dive right into Carrier 411. I think that one organization is the greatest enemy to carriers that exist out there, in carriers' minds for the most part. I would say they have their uses, but the FreightGuard program is probably the one thing that cripples this industry almost more than the scammers do. What's your take on that?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Aaron.
oh, I was going to say, well, I mean, we know they've been in business about 20 years or so. I think that the intention when it was first created was probably well intentioned. However, the landscape's changed over the course of the last 20 years. The dynamic between the lackluster enforcement of FMCSA has left a void for frankly, places like this. That Carrier 411 has decided to fill that void, as far as that goes.
I mean, we've seen some good come from them. I know they participate in FMCSA investigations. I know there was a ring out of Chicago where 120 some odd carriers got busted up from double brokering based on a lot of information that Carrier 411 provided to FMCSA because they are an absolute massive data mining operation. But despite all the good and well intentions they have, FreightGuards though, every week I get calls on this stuff. Lewie, what do you got?
I mean, every week we get calls on this as well, on a weekly basis and sometimes multiple times a day.
Do you guys provide an actual service to try to help your members deal with these things?
Yeah, that's what Aaron's department does, our compliance department. Anytime a trucker's got a problem or an issue, they call and they get our compliance department. It's not just this, but they look over broker carrier agreements. If they're having trouble, from a carrier or a broker not doing, or even enforcement regulation. Or I tell people they're kind of like a safety department for you behind the scenes. There's not anything you never know what they're going to get a call for, but there isn't anything. Truck specking, violations, whatever. But yeah, we get a lot of these calls, not only on a lot on Carrier 411, but some other of these outfits as well. And unfortunately, you're probably right. They probably started maybe with good intentions, but like everything in trucking, this has all become one-sided, and it's one-sided for Carrier 411 and the broker, and the carrier just gets hung out to dry.
Now, we understand from a few discussions that I've had with Darren Brewer, CEO of Carrier 411, how he stays in contact with me, I have no idea. I know his feelings about dispatch services, and I run a dispatch service, but he does talk to me about these things. We do know from him that he intends to launch an upgrade to the current Carrier 411 platform, which will include a service called Carrier 511, which is going to be the carrier version of Carrier 411, where carriers can then write complaints about brokers. They're not going to be called FreightGuards. They're going to be called something else. But we know that that's supposed to be coming out as part of this massive change that they've been doing ever since October. Do you think having the reverse available for carriers to be able to go after brokers would have any real impact on the industry in trying to help curtail brokers and how they use the Carrier 411?
I would say it will, and it should. My question is how he's going to do it, and then our broker is going to only have 72 hours to get back and to correct the information, or at least give their side of the story. I think that would be a big thing and a telltale thing. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if carriers had a thing to rate brokers, because they don't really. It's hard to do that. And carriers, especially brokers, they sit in front of a computer and kind of have time to look things out and flush things out, where truckers are trying to get a load, especially in a down tight market like we are now. And now you don't have very much time to do your due diligence as a carrier, because if a good load pops up there, it's on that load board a minute or two, probably at the most, and then it's gone. So again, that'd be great. And I'll be interested to see, like I said, are you going to treat brokers the same way as you have carriers? If you do, I imagine these brokers that have been using this, they're going to not be very happy kind of like the carriers.
My thing. So sorry to interject, but does he plan on like burning his phone book of blocked carrier phone numbers? What?
You know, I would think the simpler thing would be to start a second phone line specifically for the carriers to answer on. But I have no idea how really he intends to implement that. What I'm trying to figure out is how much of an impact it could possibly have. Because, you know, a carrier, no matter how much they hate a broker for whatever reason, if that broker is the only one that's got a load in the area, they're going to book that load. You know, so are they really going to spend the money on a subscription to be able just to have the ability to put the equivalent of a FreightGuard against a broker?
Probably would depend on the cost. It'd be the first thing, what it's going to cost to do that. But I mean, I would say you're right. Some carriers will take a load no matter what, but a good carrier, good motor operator knows his operating costs and does his due diligence. If he sees it's a bad broker, he's probably not going to take that load, or at least he shouldn't for that, you know. But again, everybody's their captain of their own ship there.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're doing this show here on Thanksgiving week. It's a short week. Everyone's trying to get home for the holidays. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you know, the rates are dramatically dropping right now because brokers know that drivers want to get home for the holiday, and they'll take whatever they can to do it, or they'll just deadhead home so they can get away with it in weeks like this. That's what really bothers the heck out of me sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens in down market, and that's what happens on holidays. And, you know, I mean, for those listening who are motor carriers, I know it's easy for me to sit here and say this, but if you're a small business carrier, what you need to be doing is finding contracts and your own freight, and only use brokers as a necessity to get you back. You're much better to work directly with customers, and you don't have to worry about people like Carrier 411 or brokers who are taking advantage of a down freight market and everybody trying to get home on a holiday.
Well, and Lewie makes a good point there. So many people don't talk about it, but the load boards are inherently a secondary market, right? It doesn't usually pay nearly as much as if you were to get a direct customer. And granted, we all know that if it were that easy, everyone would be doing it. But that's what you ultimately need to strive for, because the spot market, the load boards ultimately are secondary. They shouldn't only be your primary. You should exclusively use those for backhauls or to get home.
Right. You know, one of the things that direct expedite, I love this comment that you're throwing out. One of the problems that O's have, they don't have the same tools to vet brokers like the brokers vet the carriers. I know one of the things that I recommend to carriers when I'm talking to them is to take the rate confirmation and contact the 1-800 number or the corporate office of the brokerage they just booked the load with to verify the load number in the lane to make sure that they're not hauling a scammed load, as you know, one of the defense measures that they can do. But direct expedite is right. There's really not much out there for carriers to use. Now, I do run around in circles. Kate and I and Jennifer, we run around in the same circle as Dale Prax at Freight Validate. Now, we do not have Dale as one of our sponsors. In fact, we don't have a sponsor yet. But we do support Freight Validate in the work that they've been doing. They do have a cost-effective option for a lot of carriers to help them vet brokers by telling whether or not a broker is following all federal and state regulations per FMCSA, just as well as carriers. So it helps people vet carriers, not just brokers. Now, it's my understanding that one of the things that they'd like to do is they'd like to try to offer to your membership a cost-effective option for easy access to that platform, so they can run credit reports and do checks on brokers on a regular basis. Is that something that you think your members would be interested in?
Yeah, I think our members would be interested in something like that. Again, it depends on price and billing and all that. I mean, that's the biggest thing we hear probably from our members, and Aaron can probably speak better on this than I can, but it's usually everybody in the world is either looking into what we're doing or following what we're doing as far as truckers wanting our ELD data or this data or that data, but nobody is checking on these brokers or anything that the brokers are doing. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's part of it comes down to cost because this is a business and you have to verify your bottom line. And I understand that. And it's going to probably, if you're somebody out here who runs the spot market and that's all you do exclusively, which I wouldn't recommend anybody does that. But if that's what you're doing, and we know lots do, it's probably definitely worth the value.
I can pass that feedback along to Dale Prax. In fact, I think Dale is probably watching. He regularly watches the show and he's on it from time to time. So that is certainly something that we'd like to put up. And of course, they also have an access for folks who utilize Siri. They can activate the platform using Siri commands, which is kind of convenient when you're on the road. And Dale tells me that we could probably do this for roughly $10 a year per member. Whoever wants to come in, but that's definitely something that he's interested in trying to help you guys with. Because again, carriers just don't have the tool. It's not readily available to them. And this is one way to do that. And one of the things that I like about your organization is that you're trying to get the right tools into the carrier's hands. And I wish there were more folks like y'all doing that.
No, we appreciate that. Two of the things that I really harp on that we try to do here at OOIDA is advocacy on behalf of the trucker, and then also education. As far as that goes, those are two of the main points that I always talk about on a daily basis. Phone call after phone call after phone call.
So let's circle back around to Carrier 411 then. Okay. Some of the cases that you've had to work, some of the things that you've had to deal with, what kind of critiques would you offer to Darren Brewer if he was sitting in this room right now with the rest of us? What would you like to say to him?
I don't know. Start. Oh, okay. I'll go. Well, I would tell you that it seems to me that this has driven a wedge between the carrier-broker relationship unlike no other. It's created an imbalance in the industry. It drives the threats of blacklists and coercion of loads, and it disincentivizes the carrier to have an opinion on the load, or to have any kind of pushback in regards to if there's a discrepancy on the paperwork or whatnot, because most of the time these threats of the blacklist will affect the carrier and their livelihood, right? I would tell you that if I were to fix some things in regards to it, I'd want to see documented proof of the subject matter. I'd want to see a vetting process to the broker. Don't just accept any broker. Check their credentials just like you would a carrier. Post a disclaimer on there. Accusations, defamation, things of that nature may be liable to litigation, right? Allow respectful rebuttals, and that's the key word here, right? Respectful rebuttals. I know we all can get caught up in the heat of the moment, and there should probably be a cool-off period, but there should be a space to allow those respectful rebuttals, similar to the Google review system, and it should be available to be viewed by all parties involved, perhaps even the public.
Can I just piggyback on what he's saying there? Is that
go ahead?
I always say this is my percentage. I don't have documented proof of the percentage, but about 65% of freight guards are emotional. It's in the heat of the moment. Somebody gets stuck with a load on a Friday, where somebody fell off the load, or somebody called up and maybe that carrier's having an off day. No excuses. I'm just saying everybody has a bad day, and something gets said, and so I'm going to freight guard you. It's like it's like a retaliation thing. That's like the go-to to punish carriers. And there's nothing that a carrier can do to these brokers that will completely, put them out of business so much as what the brokers can do to a carrier that will ground their entire fleet. You can have a fleet of 10 trucks and one truck makes a mistake and then they put a FreightGuard on it and it's grounded the entire fleet of 10 trucks.
In fact, that's the exact situation I was working with earlier today with this one carrier. Yeah, FreightGuard for double brokering. His identity got stolen, and he's got a 12 truck fleet. And with a broker that is not willing to listen to reason whatsoever, that's a lot of people are going to lose their jobs and their livelihoods over this. And it doesn't have to be that way. At least in my mind, it doesn't.
No, at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to run a business. And yes, of course, people make mistakes. And of course, there are bad actors out there on both sides of the pendulum, right? But there has to be some kind of communication. I feel like in this digital age, we've kind of gotten away from that. And it's easier just to blacklist someone than to actually do your due diligence or take that extra step. And I feel like as a whole, as an industry, we've lost some of that.
This industry is built on relationships, and relationships are what matters in this industry. And it's taken away from those relationships some, because as soon as you FreightGuard somebody, it creates an animosity between that broker and carrier. It doesn't allow the relationship to develop. It doesn't allow us to have, for a driver to maybe communicate with their dispatcher having a bad day and knowing that tomorrow it's all going to be different again. There's a FreightGuard, and that's just it. And there's a 72-hour, rebuttal period, yes, but if everybody had to wait, 72 hours before they could even write a FreightGuard, how many people would go home over the weekend and forget about it and come back next week and do business again?
That's a damn good thought. I frankly had not thought of that. My next conversation with Darren, I'm going to bring that one up. Now, what I will say,
cool-off period.
Yeah, and I love that idea. One of the things I will say is, we all know that as of right now, they have a 500 character response that a carrier can provide on any FreightGuard. One of the things that they are going to launch when they do the relaunch of Carrier 411 in a few months is they're going to allow for a 60-second video to be uploaded by the carrier to emphasize their defense. Now, it's either going to be a situation that can help an innocent carrier help prove their defense, or it will be a comedy clip of the week from some of the more desperate people who frankly deserved it. So I don't know how far that's going to go in trying to help things. Any thoughts on the video video defense that they're trying to implement?
I think that will probably be less helpful than it will be helpful, probably. But again, I think people are going to film a video when they're already upset to a point. What we need is they need to use factual information, like Aaron said, with a report. We just can't kick a truck. We shouldn't be making a report on a trucker just because we don't like them or like their attitude. This should be something tangible. They didn't deliver on time. They had damages, stuff like that. They can really prove and show. And then a trucker could go back and prove whether this is right or wrong. He's got a clean bill of lading and everything was delivered. Then what's the problem here? I feel like so much of this is just emotion and he said, she said stuff. And by adding videos, we're just going to have more he said, she said. Tangible evidence here. Let's have that.
Example, so I didn't have to, but I filed a report against a broker and carrier, sure, and they do require all of that information. Documentation, your rate con, your VOL, your everything. They want, big explanation. They reach out via email to ask you about your complaint and get things straight or whatever. It's really that simple. Would be that simple.
100%.
One of the things that you hit on really big here, Jennifer and Kate, and you too, Lewie, it's emotion. a lot of this stuff is all about emotion. And when you look at the new categories that have come out, the 24 new categories that they've put out there, they just scream, in my mind, emotional. When I first interviewed Darren after these changes started taking place, it was like I want to say it was like October 3rd or 4th. He and I had a 2-hour phone call, and in that call, he had specified that one of the reasons why he was doing all of this was because of the reputation management services that have cropped up, who are blasting some of these brokers. Now, we are aware of good services out there who may be charging some modest fee to carriers to try to help resolve these issues with brokers, to act as a mediator, to try to bring everyone to the table and talk. Jennifer does this through her company. I do it as well. And I know you guys are trying to do so out of your office, Aaron. And good on you for doing stuff like that. But there are the others that are operating usually outside this country who are charging exorbitant fees to have communication bombs going off to the brokers, where and I've seen this story over and over again on Reddit or some other social media sites, where a broker gets blown up by foreigners calling on voice over internet protocol VoIP phone numbers, blowing them up every 30 seconds, getting hold of their cell phones, blowing their cell phones up every 30 seconds, getting hold of their family's phones, blowing them up for every 30 seconds, email bombs, whole 9 yards, until the broker capitulates and takes it down. Those are the ones, though, that Darren really was fighting after. But still, when you look at these new categories that are out there, it doesn't quite show anything other than emotion again. For example, you can freight guard somebody now for employing people from outside the United States and Canada.
You can freight guard someone for saying that they're going to get an attorney involved and pursue their rights to recover the amount that they're due for the services rendered.
And for filing on the bond.
Yeah, that's my favorite, filing on the bond. How can you be flagged for trying to get the money that's rightfully owed to you that you worked so hard for?
I'd say, yeah, that's a statutory right. 49 CFR 377, you have the right. I also have a big problem with people getting freight guards for back solicitation when all they did was they tried to contact the shipper to verify who the broker was.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I've had somebody put a back solicitation for calling to confirm their pickup time and let them know when they were coming. I was like, geez, what are you supposed to do? And they said, well, they're not supposed to contact them for any reason. I'm like, well, okay, you're just calling to confirm his appointment time and let them know that he's inbound to them and make sure that they're ready for him.
I think Carrier 411 and what they're up to now at this point is just pretty straight up. OOIDA has had plenty of members calling with problems, and we tried to reach out to Carrier 411 as more of a mediator role than anything to try to figure out what the problem was for the driver or the trucker or company and Carrier 411 and see if we could talk to him. Instead of him talking to our staff and trying to, maybe work some of this out, because if he really cares about rating people and doing it the right way, you want to do it right and make sure you got false. But instead of doing that, what's he do? He blocks all of our numbers so we can't call there. And it's not because anybody got mouthy or anything. We just simply called to say, hey, this member called. This is what's going on. Can you please explain or help us? Or maybe we can work this out or what? Nope, 72-hour email, and he blocked our calls. So you can't tell me at this point that this gentleman cares at all about doing this the right way or making this thing a legitimate rating service or not. Because legitimate services and reviews each person, each party has a time to talk. And like one of the posters put in the comments, they don't allow positive reviews as far as I know either. Most review sites,
He never will. He never will. That's not something that he cares about. He's made it inherently clear that he is in it for the brokers and for no one else.
I feel like
that's his customer base. That's his customer base, and that's it.
This has become the Jerry Springer of the trucking industry, because if you think it's a broker or carrier 511 out there, I mean, there's still not going to be anything that a carrier. There's far more carriers than there are brokers. So even if carriers are putting up reviews against these brokers, there are carriers that are going to have to take loads from some of these brokers because that's what they have out there that's offered to them. And it's going to become a Jerry Springer effect of just slamming a pie in somebody's face, emotional, and see who can leave the worst review for who.
Yeah, and it just drives a bigger wedge between the broker and carrier relationship at the end of the day.
They should be working towards a mediation rather than just a like Lewie was saying, there's not even a way to leave a positive review if you wanted to. So there's not a way to offset the negatives with the positives. The only thing you see up there is negative, negative, negative. There are some brokers that won't use you if you have any FreightGuards. There are some brokers out there that won't use you if you have the big three. I compare them from speeding tickets to murders. Like you got the double brokering, the back solicitation, and the held to load hostage. If you have one of those, that's a murder. You're never gonna get a load. If we got one of the other ones, canceling after accepting or whatever, that's a speeding ticket. But some people still won't use you if you have one. And they never fall off. They never fall off. And now there's no way to even have them deleted, even if you have provided legitimate information. You've talked to that broker and they say, yeah, we might have been a little wrong on this one. We'll go ahead and take it down.
Now, I don't know if anyone has yet seen what a profile looks like with a deleted FreightGuard on it. Has anyone gotten a chance to see one of those yet? I know I haven't, and I'm dying to see one. The way I envision it's being done, based on the description that I've gotten from Darren, was for example, when you first get a FreightGuard, like the carrier that I just put up earlier, if you go and you pull their profile up, you'll see they have a FreightGuard pending. They won't tell you what it is. They won't tell you what it's for, but it's up in the upper right-hand corner of the profile. It's going to say pending. I'm envisioning, based on what I've been hearing, that the description, that in that upper right-hand corner, it's going to say deleted FreightGuards versus active FreightGuards, and under deleted, it'll say what they were accused of and a removal code. And that removal code is one of 6 different reasons for the removal. And the question that I have, especially for compliance experts, and Aaron, that this may fall outside your realm because it's more for brokers, is do you consider that being a FreightGuard that's still there? So if you're one of those brokers that says, if you have any FreightGuards whatsoever, we never use you. Well, if they have a deleted FreightGuard, will that broker then use that carrier?
I would think that would come down to maybe the size or the volume that any particular broker moves. Like if it's somebody that's just busy all the time and they don't give a shit, then they're not going to look at any of that supporting information. They're just going to see this person has 2 FreightGuards and go on about their day. They're not going to care what it is, what it's for. They don't have time for that. They just want to cover their load. If it's maybe like a smaller broker that doesn't move as much or isn't so rush all the time, then they'll probably take out the time to look at it and look at the other supporting information or whatever and see what actually happened. That's my own speculation. Some people are just, they don't give a shit and they'll just go all day long and they just want to cover their ass and get their loads done so they can go home. Some people actually do care. So I don't know. Personal opinion, I guess.
I mean, personally, I know I would be digging into those deleted FreightGuards to see why they were deleted. That's just me, but I'm a details person.
Yeah, we would.
Lewie, you were saying?
I think it's going to depend on the market and how bad they need their load moved. That's what. I bet you when the world turns and trucks are back at where we got a lot less capacity of trucks and more capacity of loads, a lot of this stuff will completely freaking change because brokers don't always seem too picky when the worm's the other way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the recommendations that we received when we were seeking feedback was not only a cooling off period, as you had mentioned, Aaron, but also making sure that only specific individuals within the brokerage were able to post freight guards. At this point, anyone who has an account can post a freight guard. Would you recommend that brokers think twice and restrict that to executive members, or how would you play that?
Yeah, I think that's one route you can go. However, some brokerages are very small, so those executive members are the people that are talking to people too. They're not agents of the brokerages. I mean, not all brokerages are created equal, right? You have some brokerages that employ hundreds of people, and then you have brokerages that employ 2 or 3. So it really just depends. But I would say an executive of the company, or some kind of COO or the owner, should be restricted to be able to post something on an account. But keep in mind here too, though, right? We don't talk about this portion of it enough. In regards to a carrier 511 or a broker 511, whatever they want to call it this day of the month. John, who writes the contracts in a broker carrier agreement?
It's broker, always.
Broker or their attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Those will always inherently be biased, unconsciously or not. They'll always be slanted towards the broker. Mm-hmm. And the carrier's at the mercy of this, because the broker is the one who controls the freight. Unless you do have these contractual obligations with a direct customer, then you will always have this issue. And I don't care what they create in regards to that, it still disincentivizes the carrier from posting, because how many times is a carrier going to post something negative, a negative remark against a broker, before they're found out that they have a track record or a history of doing this? They'll be blacklisted just based off of if they utilize that site itself. And again, they're at the mercy.
The next FreightGuard category is going to be leaves freight guards on broker.
Right, exactly. That'll be a new one. That's coming next year, 2025.
Right. John, what I'd like to see is an expiration on these freight guards. I mean, I had a carrier that had a freight guard from 8 years ago, and it wasn't even a top 3 murder one, the worst of the worst. It was something else, and I called them and said, hey, they've had no infractions in 2000 and how many ever days, and we were respectfully saying that they've spent enough time in the penalty box with this. Can we have this removed? And he told me no. He says because of these new vetting softwares, the Go Highways and the whatever. Well, it shows that there's a brokerage that's a block down the street from them, and it shows that they shared an MC number with a company that's no longer active. I mean, was related to another company that's no longer active. So whatever reason, that one went by the wayside, and this one is still active. And they weren't. In each of its own rights, it wouldn't be enough to not to take it. They would have taken it down, but because there was 2 or 3 of them together, now they're going to leave it up. And I said, well, what if I had contacted you 2 years ago before there was a Go Highway? Would you have taken it down then? He said, probably. Okay, well, 8 years is a long time to keep up a cancel after accepting or whatever it was that freight guard was up for, and they wouldn't take it down because there's other situations now with new information coming in from those platforms like Go Highway that made him not ever want to take it down again.
Yeah, and to just piggyback off of what Jennifer was saying, it seems like these new categories that they came up with, it would seem to me that it's in the response of places like Carrier Assure or Highway, and gaining traction in the industry as an alternative. And it seems like there's a big power struggle and for the market share between competitors, to me.
The freight guard that we were talking about earlier, that if you employ somebody that works outside of the United States or whatever, I just think that goes against universally this country's vision of DEI, clauses and what are the diversity, equity, inclusion things. And I just think we have a lot of smart and intelligent people that live here, that are from other countries, that come here for work visas and return home, and maybe they maintain that employment. Maybe they came here to work and they went home and they maintained that employment from abroad, and maybe they're not a bad player. Yes, there's bad players overseas. We all are aware of the Pakistani or Indian dispatching services, but we also know that there's the double brokering rings in California of, the Armenian bubble out there that I call it. So there are bad players everywhere. That's not a reason to freight guard someone.
Yeah, I'm pulling up this comment here because I think it bears some discussion. I'm wondering here: is there a better system? Is there a better way to get the word out when there's a problem that can be positive in terms of helping the industry to try to deal with these things?
I think there should be a mediation platform.
I would wholeheartily agree with that. But I mean, as many times as I personally have said that to Darren, of course, immediately shot down from the start.
I mean, I've been a driver myself, John. I've been a driver, but I've been worked as a dispatcher at a brokerage. I've been a logistics coordinator for, Fortune 500 company. And the thing is that at the end of the day, when my carriers are wrong and they call me, I tell them they're wrong. When my carriers come to me with a freight guard they want taken down, I think it has merit to have taken down. I try to reach out to those brokers in a calm, neutral, civilized manner to speak with them. Sometimes they're not neutral and civilized when they get on the phone with me. They start yelling at me as if I were the carrier that did the infraction or whatever. I mean, there needs to be some kind of neutral base where everybody can go and file their grievance and somebody can see both sides. I see both sides all the time and every day. I have to be Switzerland all the time because I do collections. I can't go and yell at a broker about something and then expect to collect from him the next time he owes somebody. So I mean, you need somebody, in a neutral area that understands the industry, that's seen it from all sides, that can have a voice of reason either direction on who is right and wrong. But it needs to be substantiated with evidence.
Yeah, I think there could possibly be, frankly, a lot of money to be made by someone who can come up with a process that allows for some form of arbitration. I know we have tried to set something like that up in the past. I have tried offering different formats to do exactly that with Darren, and they've all fallen flat. But if there was a way for the honest carrier, for the innocent carrier to really prove their innocence, I think that then the sting of the carrier 411 freight guard goes away. Lewie, you said it yourself earlier. You'd love to see a method by where the evidence is available. The documentation that proves they double brokered, that proves they did something knowingly, intentionally wrong, but then allow the carrier to provide the same. Because it's always two sides. Well, actually, there's always three sides to every story. There's the carrier story, the broker story, and what really happened. And like Jennifer, I try to piece together the entire story from both sides before I bring them both to the table to try to discuss it and then sort these situations out. This is just probably one of the greatest epidemics for carriers in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing here. If this was fair and equitable and they used freaking facts and with proof, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation now. People who do the wrong things, whether they're a broker or a carrier, they'll get blacklisted, and people who do the right things won't have anything to worry about. And again, it seems to me this is just something for if somebody's mad, if you want to be cut down, if you're mad or you don't like what the carrier said to you or whatever, or you're going to use it as a tool to threaten a carrier, and that's all it is. And I think this could be done really. I shouldn't say easy, but this could be done in a fair manner. That could be done very easily.
Oh, I would wholeheartedly agree. And I love Dale's comment here too. It goes right along with what you've been saying earlier, Hugh. Documentation, show it, and and have that available for other brokers to review. But again, Carrier 411, as much of a data mining site as it is, and make no mistake, their primary purpose is data mining. It's not necessarily trying to police the industry. It's data mining. You figure in that they would go ahead and collect all this stuff. They're not interested, not in any way.
You know, it bothers me that Carrier 411 blocks all phone numbers if you're not calling from a brokerage. That, I mean, I can understand if you don't want to hear carriers whine about their FreightGuard or whatever, but like Lewie was saying, OOIDA's tried to call and just a question on behalf of a member to see if there is any type of resolution. You know, I've tried to reach out to them before when I knew that this FreightGuard was totally incorrect. You know, there was multiple delivery and pickup and delivery failures, which was not accurate after a carrier broke down and after a piece of debris, you know, severed their airline or hit their airline and damaged their airline and put them on the side of the road, and they wound up having to have a repair. You know, there was no, I mean, we had a receipt for it and everything, but there's no reason that should have been a FreightGuard on that carrier. And simply just having a voice of reason and saying, look, I've got this documentation that supports the story that the carrier is saying, or in the case of a broker 511 or whatever you want to call it, carrier 511, you know, the broker being able to say, look, here's the phone recording from the crazy guy that called me, you know, losing his.
Jen?
Those
Here we go.
those carriers that are those people that call in and they don't have any evidence. It's terrible. So I think there has to be documentation. There has to be some evidence. Otherwise, you know, the proof is in the pudding. We all know that.
You know, one of the things that Dale says here, everyone in here trying to make a buck, not make a difference. I would love to see FMCSA take up this mantle. FMCSA is starting to step up and do some things in the right direction. Their new registration fraud team that they just stood up a month ago is going to be working to clean up registrations. They're looking at the facial recognition and stuff like that to help try to improve things at the front end with people getting their authorities. But eventually they're going to move into current issues, like if you currently have a dummy address for your registration, they're going to go and pull and revoke those authorities. That's coming, you know. But if FMCSA would take it a step further and take up the mantle of what Carrier 411 is trying to do with the FreightGuard system, then I would think that you would get a carrier would get a much more fair shake out of the government, because the government would then be forced to try to do some form of arbitration at that point.
You would hope so, but like we all know, who's not familiar with the NCCDB, National Consumer Complaint Database? It's been around for years. You've been able to file complaints on either side for years, and what's transpired from any of that? I can't tell you I've ever been answered one time from FMCSA in regards to a complaint that's been filed.
I will say I was one of the instances of transparency that was granted this year. Here we are at the transparency thing, and I do see a need for transparency. I don't think that that it should be afforded necessarily after every single load. After listening to some people on the opposite side of the spectrum from that, just because if the carrier is getting the rate they want and they can agree to it with the broker, then why is there a need for it? But I mean, with the fraud, there definitely is. I've seen the FMCSA doing some better things, like we're saying here. But and they're going to say this doesn't have anything to do with safety. At the end of the day, the relationships between the carriers and brokers absolutely does have to do with safety. Do you want mad drivers out there driving them down the road with 80,000 pounds under them? I mean, do you want brokers out there that are, are mad at this carrier and they wind up making 3 other ones mad at? There's no need for all of that in this world and in this industry. We should be working together, and we need to come together as brokers and carriers together, and the FMCSA, for what's the good of the industry, not for, who's going to make the bigger buck out of this.
Now, Jennifer, you hit on a interesting touch point here: transparency. For those people who are paying attention to the news, we were expecting something from FMCSA on transparency. That is 49 CFR 371.3. We were expecting something from FMCSA on October 31st. October 31st came and went. However, a couple of weeks ago, We did finally get the rulemaking proposition that came through, sponsored, I believe, by SBTC and by OOIDA. So what can you guys tell us is your goal and your vision for transparency in this debate?
Well, they put in there it's electronic. Stuff has to be electronic, and they have to send it to the carrier can get it that way, because that's been a big problem for those carriers who don't ask to, or for those carriers who haven't had to waive their right in their broker carrier agreement. They just say, well, we'll show it to you, but you got to come to our office. Well, that doesn't work real well, as we know, because you could be hauling a load from Ohio to Florida and the broker be in California. So stuff like that should be helpful. Our end goal here is this is a regulation. It's been on the books since the early 80s, and it should be enforced. What started this was back in 2020 when COVID started and rates tanked. And, all them trucks were in D.C. and truckers were, trying to get the attention of the president and others and FMCSA. And we petitioned FMCSA for this because so many brokers out there make carriers waive their right. And if they don't, then they tell them, well, you got to come here to see it. Or they just blacklist them and don't load them anymore for asking. So, we don't believe anybody can ask another business entity to waive their rights to a regulation. We don't think that's even legal. And so, but it's funny that brokers get away with it. And it's taken 4 years, and we've reached out to FMCSA and wrote them some more letters, but they come out, and we're going to be filing comments. Comments are due by January 21st, as should all truckers out there. Let's flood FMCSA with comments for this, just like we did with speed limiters. We got 16,000 on speed limiters. Let's get 16,000 on broker transparent why it's important. And
sorry, go ahead, Louie.
I was just going to say, there's a big broker out here with a 3-letter acronym who's constantly ripping off our carriers and coming back after a carrier has a clean bill of lading from the shipper, comes back a month later and says there's a claim on this. Well, what's the claim? Well, don't you worry about what the claim is. You just owe us X amount of dollars for a claim. That isn't right or fair in anybody's book. But yet it continues to happen to truckers. So that's why we have to push this stuff, and that's why we have to push this rule, whether you like it or not, because there's people out there that are brokers taking advantage of truckers all the time. And unfortunately, truckers are at the bottom of the pile, and they're the easiest ones to get fleeced, and it isn't right and it isn't fair.
And all I was going to add to that is I just want to clarify. I think that everybody has the right to transparency. I just don't know that it should be automatic after every load. I know why they're saying that. It's so that they don't discriminate and people can't be blacklisted. But I think the carrier should actually have to go to the effort of asking for it to get it.
Well, yeah, they should have to ask. There's no reason it should be, but yeah, they can ask for it. But once it's asked for, it should be shown. That's the regulation.
Absolutely. I agree.
I pulled that up out of sequence.
I got to run. So thank you all for a great show. I really appreciate you having me on, John. Thanks, Lewie and Aaron. Great insight. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Have a good night.
We've got about 5-10 more minutes, guys, and then we'll start wrapping it up. But Dale makes a nice comment here that there needs to be an amendment to 8505 to include all freight, not just household goods. And that's something that can be, I think, very helpful to the entire industry. Now, how much power does OOIDA have in terms of lobbying efforts for trying to deal with these kinds of changes?
Oh, OOIDA is good power. We got grassroots power, the best power. Well, we need a non-dysfunctional government. That's been the problem for the last few years here. I mean, just look at our parking bill. We got to clear the finish line, but we can't get Congress to get off their butts and vote for it. So hopefully we have a new election. We just had an election. We got a new Congress next year. And hopefully maybe some of this infighting and stuff will end and we can work across the aisles with both parties and get something done. I mean,
Any insight?
that's the problem. Nobody's getting anything accomplished in Washington, D.C. because of all this bullshit down there.
I haven't seen anything accomplished in D.C. in a very, very long time. Geez, I got completely lost my train of thought here for a second. You know, the quagmire that is DC it just blows my mind. What kind of impact do you think our incoming Secretary of Transportation might have? And any hopes of improvement based on what we're seeing from Trump's pick?
Well, I hope that with the last one, at least Buttigieg admitted that there really wasn't a driver shortage. There was a pay shortage and a parking problem, which that's good to hear from the Secretary of Transportation because we've never heard that kind of stuff before, and we know that's the truth. So I hope that he listens to that, but I hope he takes it even farther and does some things about it and listens to folks in the industry like OOIDA and our members and hit some of these problems head on instead of just getting on TV and talking about it. Let's do some things. I hope he fires the agency up so that they can rule on things and it doesn't take them 4 years or more like it did with this broker transparency and some of this other stuff. I also hope that he uses his power to get FMCSA and DOT to listen to what drivers are telling them about helping safety on our highways. Quit listening to special interests and all these other people. I'm not saying that you don't listen to them at all, but let's listen to what truckers say, because at the end of the day, there's no one more concerned about highway safety than a trucker. That's where they live. That's where they make their living. That's where they are every single solitary day. That's where their office is. And they know how to be safe and they know what it takes to be safe. And it's not just gadgets and all this other crap that we've had rammed down our throats for the last few years and stuff. It's training, it's parking, it's treating drivers like they should be treating, paying them properly, not pretending that there's a driver shortage so we can just ram regulation through or turn a blind eye to regulation. So that's what I hope the new DOT secretary does, is take the input of truckers and put that with some of this other stuff and start thinking about that, because the men and women on the highway are the true experts of highway safety.
And John, I'll jump in here coming out of hibernation for a moment to build on some of Lewie's comments. And you mentioned earlier about things not getting done in DC. At times that can be a good thing, because when you think about it in terms of speed limiters, that's probably a good thing that mandate didn't go through. And a really big reason why it didn't go through was because of the efforts of OOIDA as an organization and our membership as a whole. As Lewie said, 16,000 comments went to FMCSA. That, I believe, is either the first or second most number of comments for a rule or regulation in the history of the agency. And we brought that argument to Congress. Lewie testified in Congress multiple times over the last 2 years and brought the issue of parking and the issue of speed limiters to lawmakers themselves. So there's a reason that speed limiters are not mandated on trucks today, and it's in large part because of OOIDA's efforts.
Well, bravo to that. That's probably one of the craziest regulations I had ever thought of when that got proposed. I mean, it's bad enough. I used to drive too. It's bad enough when you sit there and you get brake checked every other day by some moron who's looking for a quick insurance payout. But then to be the guy who's the slowest guy on the road, and I mean, now you're begging to get rammed. I mean, I never understood what the sense of all that was. So I'm glad that you guys are out there trying to advocate for the carriers. That's a great thing. And what I'm seeing is that you're not just advocating for carriers, you're advocating for the entire industry, especially through education efforts. And that's one of the things that I really want to applaud OOIDA for. Education, I think, is better for everyone in the entire industry. I mean, what kind of advice would you have for a carrier who's just trying to come into the industry. There are some 2,000 new registrations for carrier authorities every week. What would you recommend to a new carrier trying to get into this business?
If you want to get in the trucking business, first and foremost, you got to have money and financial backing. So that's first and foremost. If you don't have any credit and you don't have any cash, don't get into trucking. So if that's the first and foremost, is make sure you're at. Make sure you're good at managing money. If you can't manage your money as a driver, the last thing in this world you need is a business and have to manage a whole lot more money. That's the other thing. Do your research. Do your research. Talk to lots of people. Get your own customers. Like you said, this industry was built on relationships, and relationships are what can make you be very prosperous. That's how I was very prosperous. Is I had good friends and good relationships and good customers. Have those customers. Brokers are not the end all be all. This is not an industry where you want to come out here and just run the spot market and all that stuff. So do all that stuff. Try not to factor your money. And I know there's people use factoring companies for their back office and for a variety of reasons. But if you're going to, read the contract. And I can't say that enough. No matter what you're doing out here, read the contracts. If you can't read a contract or you're not sure, you don't trust yourself, join OOIDA and Aaron will read your contract or one of his co-workers. We'll do that. We'll help you. We're not attorneys. We look at broker carrier agreements, motor carrier lease, all these different kinds of contracts all the time. And so they know the good, they know the bad. So read your contract and know what's in it. And, those are the biggest things that you can do. Those are some of the things. Know what you're going to haul, where you're going to haul. And if you don't have motor carrier authority yet, or you're just thinking about buying a truck, I strongly suggest you find a decent carrier to lease to before you ever, and I mean lease, not lease purchase, but lease your truck. Find a good company to lease to, know what's in your lease agreement, make sure it's legitimate. And again, if you're not sure or want to send it into OOIDA, Aaron or one of his co-workers will read that for you and help you with that too. So these are things. OOIDA has lots of things on their foundation website, lots of training about getting your authority and being a trucking company. Take advantage of that stuff. And then finally, join OOIDA. I say that to everybody. $45 a year. If you say you watch this show and you call in, you can have it for $35. Just tell them that Lewie said to call in when you call our membership for $35. It's a voice in trucking. You get Aaron and his team for free. I mean, if you're a member, you can call them for any kinds of questions. We have a drug testing consortium, insurance, permitting, licensing, life and health, lots of benefits, and we're advocating for your rights every day. I got a team on Capitol Hill that's better than anybody down there. They're wearing out their shoes fighting for truckers. So there you go. That's what I say you need to be to be a trucker.
Well, Dale is now chiming in. He's doing his shameless plug to try to help OOIDA members as well. But I would love to get you and Dale in contact with each other to try to have a discussion. Because if you offer that discount to people joining up through this show, that discount would pay for having Dale Prax's product out there, Freight Validate, to help these carriers do things like credit checks and make sure that the broker is actually operating in accordance with FMCSA regulations. So just throwing that out there. But definitely want to get you guys connected. We're coming up towards
I just feel free to share my contact information and somebody's to Dale, and we can get from there.
Absolutely. Definitely would love to do that. We're coming up towards the end of the hour. Actually, we're a little over already. Lewie, do you have any parting thoughts? Anything else that you want to get off your chest?
No, the only thing I want to say, and then I got to go myself, is I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Be careful out there, truckers. I hope everyone gets safe and has a healthy and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, Lewie. Aaron, you got anything?
I don't. I just want to say thank you for having us on the show. I enjoyed it thoroughly and love to be back and do this again anytime.
Okay, George, you want to chime in, or are you just going to stay out there?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having us. Much appreciated, and shining light on this this important issue. And for everyone watching and listening, you can keep up with what we're fighting for and fighting against in Washington at fightingfortruckers.com.
Fightingfortruckers.com. Thank you very much, George. Kate, it's another. It's a short week. We're ready to try to finish it. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're already done, aren't you?
I am done. It was really nice to meet you guys, though, and I think this is very, very informative. And I think we put a lot of really good information out there. So I really appreciate you guys joining in on this.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. And for everyone else out there, it's Thanksgiving week. Be careful going home. A very, very heavy traffic on this holiday, as per usual. But with our usual closing comments here, Stop the Scam airs live every Monday, 5 p.m. Central Time, on all the Lounge Media Group social media outlets. Be sure to check us out, like and subscribe. So that way you stay in touch with any updates that we have that come up throughout the week. If you find yourself under a scam load and you need some assistance, you can always hit up Kate at kprice@rockdovefs.com, or myself, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, at jcantera@vigilanttransport.com. Again, stay safe out there, folks. Enjoy the time with your family while you get the chance. And whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride. We'll catch you all next week. Enjoy your holiday.
See ya.